Houston, this is Apollo. Our flight control system got hit. Nothing we can't fix, hopefully. Over.
This is Houston. Acknowledged. You're still on track with your course to the moon. Please let us know if you require assistance. Houston, over.
In 1961, the world is full of hope when US President Kennedy challenged to send astronauts to the moon and back.
Hi, it's Tarrant.
And Stella from Meeple University on the Dice Tower, teaching you in our How to Play video series.
Here we have the game Apollo, game published by Buffalo Games.
Let's get to the table.
Apollo is a cooperative dice manipulation game for 2 to 5 players based on the Gemini and Apollo space missions of the 1960s. One player plays as mission control, monitoring telemetry data and communicating situations to the crew. The rest of the players play as astronauts, who will use dice to try to complete the mission, complete scientific experiments, and return to Earth safely. The game has limits. There are a limited number of turns in the game, defined by the Apollo track. There is a limited amount of time in each round. Mission Control has a limited amount of information it can communicate. And as flight systems start to fail, the mission only gets harder. If the team can overcome these constraints, they will succeed at the mission, win the space race, and win the game. To set up, first decide whether you're going to use the starter Gemini missions, which orbited the Earth, or the advanced Apollo missions, which visited the Moon. The pack you choose contains the experiments and flight stage cards you need. Choose one player to play as Mission Control and all other players to be astronauts. The Mission Control player will set up the Mission Control board behind this screen. The 3 alert flags and the comms down flag should be attached to the top of the board. Set the sliders up to maximum on all of the tracks. Shuffle this mission's experiment cards and place them here. Then place the top card here and place the experiment pawn on the 0 space of the card. Individually shuffle the 5 crisis decks and place them next to their corresponding systems. You will have 5 decks of 5 cards. Take 2 comm tokens which show the word comm on both sides. Place the other comm tokens off to the side in a stack, arranged so that you can't see any of the special abilities present on the back of some of them. Take 1 die of each colour and put any pieces associated with the crisis puzzles off to the side for the moment. All of this is obscured from the astronauts behind the mission control screen. The astronaut players take the flight control board, the flight damage board, and 5 dice of each colour. They set the plus-minus bonus tokens off to the side for now. The astronauts also take the 5 red astronaut pawns. These serve no specific function during the game but can be used as reminders for various things by the astronauts. And 1 astronaut player at random takes the turn token, and that player will act first. Between Mission Control and the astronauts, place this mission's mission board and all of the flight stages in ascending order alongside that board. There are 5 stages in Gemini and 8 in Apollo. Place the mission pawn onto the stage 1 space of the mission board and flip the stage 1 flight card. And you're ready to play. The game of Apollo is played in rounds. Each round, the astronauts will roll their dice, and then, based on the numbers which don't get rolled, suffer damage to some of their flight systems. The astronauts then take it in turns to take actions by placing 1 or more dice from those available onto an action space to either take that action or to repair that system on the mission control board. The mission control player advances the pawn 1 space on the mission track after each action. Astronauts continue taking actions in this manner until they are either out of dice to take actions with, or until they are out of time, which is a 4-minute timer each round. Play will then pass to the next round, where the astronauts will need to roll their dice and take damage once again before going on to their next actions. The team continues taking rounds in this manner until they've either won or lost the game. To win the game, the players must move the mission pawn to the final stage, which will be stage 5 in Gemini or stage 8 in Apollo, and must complete the dice objectives on each of the flight stages before passing that stage on the track. Players must also complete a set number of experiment cards, 2 in Gemini or 3 in Apollo. Before we get into the specifics of the actions and how the rounds work, an important thing that needs to be outlined up front is that there is limited communication between the mission control player, who has more information, and the astronauts. There are some specific things which mission control can communicate for free, but all other communication requires the spending of a comm token. That being said, the screen only prevents the astronaut players from seeing the mission control player's board. Mission control can see everything that the astronauts are doing and can hear all conversation that the astronaut players have. With those restrictions on communication in mind, let's get into the specifics of how each round works. Each round of Apollo will begin with the roll phase, in which the astronauts roll the dice they'll be using for this round of actions. First, the astronauts ask Mission Control how many dice they can roll. Mission Control will check the number of dice listed below the current position on the life support track and then relay that number back to the astronauts without having to use a comms token. You can role-play this communication if you'd like. If the number to be rolled is anything less than 10, the astronauts decide whether to leave yellow or black dice behind for the round. Additionally, if there are any dice on incomplete flight stage cards between rounds, players will normally leave these in place to contribute to completing that flight stage. If there are several dice out here, this may result in the players rolling fewer than their total allotted number of dice. Remember that the astronauts only have a total of 10 dice between the flight stages and their board. The 2 dice possessed by the mission control player are never rolled by the astronauts in this stage. Once the dice have been rolled, the astronauts arrange them on the flight damage board according to the number rolled. The number of revealed X's in each row will represent the amount of damage done to the corresponding system. However, before assigning damage, any dice in the 6th row may be allocated to any rows of the player's choosing. These dice will still count as 6s, but they mitigate some of the damage to the systems. The astronaut players will then relay back the amount of damage suffered by each system. Here it would be 2 damage to power distribution, 2 to experiments, and 2 to communications. The mission control player acknowledges and adjusts the relevant systems, and once again does not need to spend comms tokens to do this. It may happen that the damage from a certain system will put that system into crisis. When this happens, Mission Control draws a crisis card for that system and will then resolve that crisis. I'll talk more about crises towards the end of the video, but the important thing is that if the player affected is Mission Control, then Mission Control is not allowed to communicate the crisis without using a comm token. If there are more than 3 dice in a given row, then the astronauts receive a plus-minus bonus token for each die in these last 3 columns. This is a small benefit to offset the fact that there will be more X's uncovered and more damage suffered. Plus-minus tokens are spent during the action phase to increase or decrease the number on a die by 1. However, these cannot be spent in the roll phase to adjust where damage occurs. These can only be spent when these dice are moved to the action spaces in the action phase. And so with that, let's look at the action phase. To start the action phase, start a 4-minute countdown timer, as this sets the time limit for the round. The round is played in turns, and the turn is taken by whichever astronaut player is holding the turn token. However, all astronauts are playing from the same set of dice and actions and can discuss their actions before taking them. It is a fully cooperative game. A turn is resolved in the following steps. First, the player moves one or more dice from the flight damage board to an action space up on the main board. There is no limit to the number of dice which can be placed in a given action, but some spaces have prerequisites which must be met. When moving a die from the flight board to the action board, the player may spend one or more bonus tokens to increase or decrease the value on the die by 1. This cannot be used to wrap around a 6 into a 1 or vice versa. Next, the team resolves the action which was just activated, and I'll go through what all of these are shortly. Then, the mission control player advances the pawn by 1 step around the mission track. And finally, the astronauts hand the turn token to the next astronaut clockwise. The new astronaut takes a turn in the same way, and so on until the astronauts are either out of dice or out of time. The astronauts may also choose to end the round early, even if they have dice remaining. Within a round, players can place as many or as few dice as they wish, and there is nothing stopping players from taking the same action multiple times on the same round. This will expend the game's turns more quickly, but there are times that the players may wish to do this. With that in mind, let's look into how each of these actions works. The first action is flight control, and this is all about completing flight stages. The flight stages are represented by these large cards next to the mission board. There are 5 in the Gemini, 8 in Apollo, and you must complete all of them to win the game. Each flight stage card shows a dice combination which is required to complete that stage. Here, for example, it requires 4 dice, all of the same colour, and all of the same number. To take the action, the astronauts move the dice into the flight control section and then onto the card. The team does not need to complete the entire stage at once, but as mentioned before, any dice that the players wish to leave on here between rounds will not be rolled at the start of the next round. Once all the boxes on a stage are filled, the astronauts must wait for mission control to declare that flight stage complete. This can only happen if the flight control damage marker is at 4 or above. If it does, then the mission control player returns the dice to the astronauts and flips the flight stage card over. If flight control is too low, the astronauts can still place dice onto the stage cards, but the mission control player is not allowed to flip a finished stage. If the astronauts do fill a card without the mission control player flipping it over, that effectively communicates without a comm token that flight control is in danger. This should be a good signal to the astronauts to repair this system. Many flight stages in the Apollo mission are completed in 2 steps. Here, the astronauts complete the top row, then retrieve those dice before completing the second row, at which point mission control would flip the card over. The flight cards are the major objective that players must complete as the game goes on, and they're also the major link to the true story of the Gemini and Apollo missions. Each stage represents a true part of the historical mission, and when you flip it over, will give you a picture of that stage of the mission. If the mission pawn ever moves past a stage marker, that is to the space after a stage marker, and that flight stage is not yet complete, then the players immediately lose the game. In this case, the game would not be lost on this turn, but on this turn. Players should also note that they cannot start a stage early. So here, if the team got a really quick start on completing flight stage 2, they would still need to wait for the pawn to advance past stage 2 before they could commit any dice to flight stage 3. The next action is power distribution, and this can only be activated using black coloured dice. Power distribution allows mission control to adjust the health of the different systems, and the numbers showing on the dice that are placed represents the number of adjustments that can be made. A 1, 2 or 3 allows 1 adjustment, a 4 or 5 allows 2, and a 6 allows 3. So these 2 dice would give 4 adjustments. Additionally, if the health of the power distribution system is 3 or less, then the total number of adjustments is reduced by 1. Resolving the power distribution action occurs entirely by the mission control player, and each adjustment allows mission control to increase the health of one system by 1 step, at the cost of reducing the health of another by 1 step. Essentially, this action allows you to balance the healths of the different systems, or even heal the ones you really want at the cost of the ones you're less keen on. The third action is life support, which can only be activated by yellow dice. The astronauts come here to gain bonus tokens for adjusting their dice. The number of tokens gained is 1 for a 1, 2 or 3, 2 for a 4 or 5, or 3 for a 6. So these 2 dice would allow the players to gain 5 bonus tokens. The astronauts simply take them from the stack and add them to their collection. The fourth action is experiments, and this is where the astronauts go to commit dice into an experiment. The team must complete 2 experiments during the Gemini mission or 3 during the Apollo mission to win the game. At any given time, the mission control player has an active experiment, which is not visible to the astronauts. To complete this experiment, for example, the astronauts would need to commit a total of 5 black 3s into the experiment's action. But the astronauts don't know that unless mission control communicates it with a comm token. To take the action, first the astronauts commit any number of dice that they wish to. Then, unseen to the astronauts, mission control advances the experiment pawn 1 step for each matching die that was committed. Here it would be advanced 1 space. Additionally, if the experiment's track is in good health, then mission control can secretly adjust the value on these dice in order to make them match the experiment. In this way, it's as if this track gives mission control some bonus tokens to play with for the experiments. At health 5 or 6, mission control can make 1 adjustment, and at health 7 or 8, mission control can make 2. So, if the health of the system were like this, then mission control could treat that 2 as a 3 and advance another step. This track does not allow the colour to be adjusted, so this yellow 3 will still not score this experiment. Be aware that these dice are still on the astronaut's board, and all of what's happening here is behind the screen and without communication. The astronauts do not know, unless communicated with a comm token, whether the dice they've placed have been successful in this experiment or not. Once the experiment pawn reaches the final step, the experiment is complete. Mission control flips the card over, communicates that this has been complete without having to use a comm token, and announces the reward, which can be gained either by mission control or the astronauts, depending on what it is. Once again, this also tells the story of a true experiment on the Gemini or Apollo missions. Mission control then removes this card and replaces it with the top card from the experiment deck. The pawn is reset to 0. The fifth action is communications, and you can use dice of either colour, but can only use odd-numbered dice. Mission control can then pick up a number of random comm tokens equal to the sum of the dice, so here it would be 6. Mission control takes them behind the screen and flips them over. Some of them will have bonus abilities in addition to comms, and I'll go through these when we get to mission control section of the video. The final action available is to repair one of the 5 systems, and each of them has its own action space on the board. To do this, the astronauts choose a system and commit any number of dice to that system. Dice must be arranged in ascending order, and there cannot be any matching numbers in that sequence. The number of steps by which that system will be repaired is equal to the total number of dice placed, plus the number of dice matching the first die in colour. So here, a sequence of 4 with 2 dice matching the first one is 6 repair. This sequence would be 3 plus 1 is 4 repair, and this sequence would be 2 plus 0 for 2 repair. Mission control then makes the adjustment upwards on the corresponding track. This covers all of the actions available to the astronauts, and so now let's have a look at mission control and all of the responsibilities carried by that position. We've already seen a few of the responsibilities of the mission control player. Mission control advances the pawn each time the astronauts take an action. Mission control tracks the progress on experiments. and Mission Control tracks the health of the different systems, both up during repairs, down during the roll phase, and adjusting with the power distribution action. However, one of Mission Control's most important roles during the action phase is to communicate with the astronauts by use of comm tokens. Mission Control gains comm tokens by means of the communications action, and at any point during the actions phase may spend a comm token to reveal one piece of information to the astronauts. This could be the number or colour or quantity of dice on the experiment being completed. Each of these is a separate piece of information, so completely communicating this card to the astronauts would cost 3 comm tokens. A comm token could also be spent to talk about the health rating on any one of the given systems. As it's laid out here, Mission Control could spend 1 token to say life support is at 6. A comm token can also be spent to communicate when a system is in crisis. Remember that Mission Control cannot communicate a Mission Control crisis for free, but could spend 1 comm token here to say that life support is in crisis, or to tell the players that they have to address this particular crisis. Again, I'll come back to crisis at the end of the video. Mission Control can gain comm tokens at any time, but can only spend them to communicate when communications is at least 4 or better. If the system drops below 4, comms will be down and comm tokens can no longer be spent until that system is repaired. However, there are a couple of other forms of communication still available at this time. When comms are down, Mission Control raises the comms down flag, which communicates this to the rest of the team. This tells them that they need to repair the comms. Additionally, Mission Control has 3 alert flags, which may be raised or lowered whether comms are up or down. However, Mission Control cannot communicate what those alerts mean. Usually, they will mean that a system is low in health and needs to be repaired, but does not allow Mission Control to indicate which system. It's important to note that the alert flags may only be raised during the action phase. You cannot take damage on a specific system in the roll phase, then raise an alert, as this communicates too much information about which system is low in health. Mission Control also may have some bonus comm tokens available with an additional power on the back. These can be spent for communication or for their additional power. Transfer damage can be spent during the roll phase to transfer 1 damage from one system to another. Add 1 die can be spent when answering the life support question to give the players an additional die for the round. +1 to any system allows any one track to be healed by 1 step. And any colour die may be spent during an experiment to change the colour of a die to the other one when evaluating whether it advances the experiment. Like all comms tokens, none of these bonus effects can be used when comms are down. The final element of the game is resolving crises, and a crisis will occur when a system is reduced to 0 health, where it says crisis. When a system goes into crisis, Mission Control draws the top crisis card for that system. At this point, one of 3 things may happen. The first is that the crisis card affects the astronauts, in which case Mission Control hands the card to the astronauts and the astronauts read it. This will be some sort of negative effect which will be in place until the system is out of crisis. The second is that the crisis affects Mission Control. When this happens, Mission Control cannot communicate the crisis to the astronauts without spending a comm token. As before, this will be some negative effect which is in place until the crisis is resolved. In both cases, this sort of crisis is resolved by repairing the system in question to at least 4 health. You'll also notice that some crises have a time limit on them, after which the mission is failed. In other words, the players lose the game. In this case, for example, if the crisis is not resolved inside the next 2 action phases, that is 2 rounds, then the game is lost. The other type of crisis is a crisis puzzle, and this is resolved as follows. To set up for this, Mission Control lays out all of the crisis puzzle pieces and draws a random crisis puzzle board. Mission Control also needs its 2 dice, which were set aside at the start of the game. Then, start the round timer. During the actions phase, the astronauts are not allowed to perform any actions until Mission Control has completed the crisis puzzle. In this way, the puzzle represents a real-time challenge. Mission Control will roll the dice to try to get pairs or triples to win pieces to put into this puzzle. Mission Control starts with only 2 dice to roll, but the astronauts can give Mission Control an additional die to also roll into the puzzle. The die given in this way is not available for the astronauts for the rest of this round. Mission Control continues rolling some or all of the dice to try to get the pieces required to fulfill the puzzle. Mission Control's aim is to create a pathway from one yellow square to the other on this circuit board, covering both of them. Pieces may be moved or rearranged once they've been placed, but cannot be placed in such a way that they cover one of these red obstacle squares. Once the pathway has been completed, the crisis is over. Mission Control returns all of these pieces, discards the crisis card, and resets the system in question to full health. Once all crisis puzzles which were open in this round are complete, then, without using a comm token, Mission Control can tell the astronauts that they may begin taking actions for this round. To win the game, the team must complete all of the flight stages, and the final flight stage is completed by advancing to the Stage 5 splashdown space with enough systems still in good health. Additionally, by this time the team must have completed enough experiments, 2 in Gemini or 3 in Apollo. If they achieve this, they win the game. The team will lose if they have not completed enough experiments, if the pawn advances past a stage space without that flight stage being complete, or if a time-limited crisis destroys the ship. There are some variants in the game to increase the difficulty. You can leave your 6s in the bottom row each round rather than redeploying them, resulting in increased damage. You can play so that a system is healed only to 4 rather than to full health after completing a crisis puzzle. And you can play a randomized setup where you start with 6 health on each system, but adjust them off a roll of the dice before you begin. Now we're going to give you a quick demonstration of what one round of this game might look like. This is a 2-player demonstration. I am playing Mission Control and Stella is playing the astronauts.
Indeed, I'm going to start with role-playing this. Mission Control is Gemini. How many dice am I rolling this time?
Gemini, you have 10 dice available.
10 dice. So I'm starting this without starting the timer yet. And putting this away. And 2. I feel like life support means that I need to have Julia, so I'm going to put it right here. It's necessary. Okay.
Gemini, what's your damage report?
Power distribution 2.
Distribution 2.
Experiment 1.
Experiments 1.
Communications 2.
Communications 2. Okay, damage report complete. Gemini, you are clear to start the actions.
I want to give communication, so I'm going to give this odd number dice, so you get 5 communications token.
5 comms tokens.
Yep.
Okay, I'll spend a comms token. Gemini, the number on the experiment is 1. And I'll spend another. Gemini, the colour of the die in the experiments is yellow.
Okay, so 1's in yellow. We don't know how many dice yet. So I'm going to try to get life support to give me, gain plus and minus tokens. So I'm going to put the number 4, so yellow 6 to give me 3 tokens. Thank you.
Check.
And then I have 3 minutes and 13 seconds. I am going to try to complete the experiments. I am going to use 2 of these to turn the 3s into 1. Yep. And I will do this where the mission goes. Yep.
Okay, checking that. We advance here. Gemini, we have completed the experiment bioassay of bodily fluids. So reward for this, you gain a bonus token. I gain 2 comm tokens.
So this is like flip side. I can do it either way. Excellent. So you got 2 more. I'm going to try to mitigate communications damage. So I'm going to try to fix communication. So I'm going to put 1, 2 in the same color. 3. So 1, 2, 3. I think I'm going to do that 3.
Okay. Communications are heal.
Yeah. Now I have to get to the first stage 2 by discarding the dice of the same color and then same number, which I can't do this time yet. I think I'm gonna just try. I'm gonna pass for this one.
Okay.
Because if I keep rolling, if I'm gonna try to mitigate this, I'm gonna get 3 less dice, and means that the damage will be more next round.
Okay, so that will bring a round to the end. Stella will gather up all of those dice and roll again as we move into the new roll phase for the next round.
And that's how to play Apollo. Hope you enjoyed the video and hope you reach the moon. If you enjoyed this video, please help us by hitting that like button and subscribe to the Dice Tower if you haven't already done so.
And if you have any questions, comments or feedback, please write them in the comments section below.
Until next time!